Hello everyone, this is my little broad bean trial. These are doing really well, but now they need tying in. They're staked, but they need tying in. But I'm sowing some more beans today because I'm moving on to the next stage of feeding my garden. Now over the past few videos, over the past couple of months really, I've really focused in on my composting, the different compost heaps I've got and how I use them, how I get them going, that sort of thing. And I've recently just spoken about using fertilizers to supplement the compost that you can't make yourself, because not everyone can make enough. I've talked about liquid feeds. I've spoken about putting the soil biology into your soil if you can't make enough compost, by making your own compost tea, nice and simple, bog standard, easy to do stuff, and also by buying products that will also do that for you. But this I'm moving on to now is green manures, and it's another stage in that feed process to make your garden incredibly productive for the next season. So these are field beans. Now you'll have seen many people sowing and planting these on YouTube over the past month or so, and you know, they've got a good window for when you can sow them. You can sow them really from September, October, November, whatever really time sort of suits you best. I'm sowing them now because I ordered mine back in August, but the company that was supplying the company that I ordered them from was doing extensive germination trials. They weren't happy with the first batch, they had to get a second batch. So they're late, but you can sow these all the way up to the end of the month. And you can, if you wish, sow them indoors in modules, which I will do to back myself up, if you like, to get them going, basically. And all you really want to do is just plant them. I'm planting mine in rows, and I'll just pop them down every 4 inches or so, like that, all the way down. I'll put a string line in, as you can see. I'll pop them in, and then just press them in. Basically, see a second knuckle, you just want them 2 inches deep, press them in, and then later, when you've done the whole bed, just rake it over to cover them over. Now, with green manures, there are so many different types, and it's worth researching and looking around for a couple of reasons. First of all, because you'll find a mix or a particular seed that will suit your location and your soil conditions, so your local conditions, the best that's there for you. And also to look into which types do which job. These will fix nitrogen from the air into your soil. Then later on, when these are ready and I need a bed for something else, I'll cut them all off at soil level, leave all the roots in, leaving all that lovely nitrogen in the beds for the plants that I'm putting in there, and all the green stuff I cut off the top will go on the compost heap. I'm getting a double whammy from it. Plus the fact you can eat these if you want to. So you could leave a couple of rows in, or one bed. I'm filling 3 beds up today and a couple of halves. You could harvest them early in the year. You're getting even more for your money. Some will actually put out really, really fibrous roots, and they will need digging in. These don't, they just need cutting off. I've got some grazing rye I'm going to be planting elsewhere on the plot in the spring, which will grow for a couple of years, and I'll just keep on getting a crop from that, but we'll talk about that later. So there's many types out there. Read the instructions and look at many sites. The second reason why you should look at them is, I was looking at a reasonably popular website. It wasn't my normal Premier Seeds, but 500 grams of these field beans were $5.95. I paid that same price for 2.5 kilos just by looking around. And if it's too much for me, I can pass them on to somebody else or share the cost, whatever. So definitely worth looking around. So I'll plant all these up, and then we'll go inside, and I'll plant some up in modules as well, and then talk about the rye. So using the string line, I've got nice rows in there, and what that means is that through the winter, in the mild spells, as it is now, weeds will grow, and it means I can just hoe along the rows and get rid of the majority of the weeds. Eventually the beans should cover this bed, certainly by, I would think, into February next year, and it will stop the weeds anyway. But anyway, they're all in, planted, and I've put them in second knuckle deep, so about 2 inches deep. Just need to rake over these holes now, very gently. I don't want to go too deep and disturb the seed. Just want to cover and fill these holes gently. So that is these 3 beds done, and the 2 little end beds up there. So all these 6 beds are now either planted or they're overwintering plants, but they're all in use now, which is good. Now, a little bit of a caveat to that is that we are a cold county. These might not germinate and grow for me. They might not. We've got farmers' fields just over there, and there are sheep just 30 yards over there. So we've got a huge population of things like mice and shrews and voles and those sorts of things. If they find out these seeds are here, that's it, I'm done for, and they'll have the lot. And now that I've raked the top down, you'll see a little indent in the top of your soil, just where they poke their nose in to get at the seed and take it away. So all these things are against me here, but if you don't sow, you won't know and you can't grow. So I've got those in. So some facts and figures on these field beans. These beds 4 foot wide and they're 16 foot long, and I've put 6 rows of seeds into each bed. Now the recommended distances for growing these seeds when you're planting them is 4 inches apart along the complete row, in rows 8 inches apart. Now I've gone a little bit closer than that, probably more like 3 inches apart, in rows 6 inches apart, there or thereabouts. And each one of these beds has used 200 grams of seeds. So that'll just give you an idea of the amounts of seed and the planting distances. If you go ahead and decide to order and buy some yourself, it'll give you an ordering guide. And each bed took me about 20 minutes to do. So in total, the whole lot, including the 2 satellite beds, about an hour and a half to do all of that. So not a great deal of time to do. And as I bought 2.5 kilos of this seed for around about 5 or 6 quid, can't quite remember exactly, the seed cost for all of this is about £2. So it's neither here nor there if they don't germinate. I prefer them to germinate and grow and do what I need them to, but if it doesn't, it's not a great loss. So they're just the facts and figures. Now we'll go and talk about some green manures in general, and I'll show you another seed I've got to sow as well. Now green manures are often a thing that's wholly misunderstood. People get the general gist of the idea in like you grow something and you can harvest that later. You can cut it off and you can compost that, or you can use it as a mulch on the bed where it's growing in, or use it as a companion crop to grow alongside and later dig it in to help further enrich the soil. So those sorts of things are fairly common knowledge. What is less widely known is the other properties of green manure. Take for instance these field beans which I've just planted. Now they will grow up and they will fix nitrogen at the roots from the air. So later on, when I come to cut them off and compost them, the roots will stay in the ground, leaving the nitrogen in the ground. All well and good. This is pretty much common knowledge. So you get that compost value as well on your compost heap. But also, as that plant grows, you can pinch the top of the plant out and eat them, a few leaves, in a salad. If you leave them long enough in the ground, you'll get beans that you can eat as well. So it has many uses, and that's just one type of green manure. Let's take another one, a mustard, caliente mustard. That's quite well known as a biofumigant. And what that means is that when it's grown and you cut it down and dig it into the soil, you encapsulate its decaying as it's decaying, it releases gas, and you encapsulate that within your soil. It fumigates your soil. It increases the soil microbes, which is, as the plant's rotting away, it increases the soil microbes, the good things, which start then to outweigh the bad things, and it protects against diseases. One of the common ones is potato cyst nematode. So it goes against that. The one I've always used it for is against wireworm, which is a little grub for a beetle, and they're the little things that come along with your potatoes and put little tiny holes in your potatoes. Later on, because there's an opening in your potatoes, a slug will get in and you get the big holes. So you can see that by planting a cover crop, you're not only getting the goodness you put back into the soil when you dig it in or when you compost it, you're getting other things. It's like a first aid kit for your garden, and there's plenty of things like that. Or what's that other one? Bird's foot trefoil. It's a very low growing plant, fabulous name for a plant, but that will wipe out your soil at ground level of your plants, so it will sort of mulch your plants, but it will also suppress weeds at the same time. Later on, if you let it flower, and I'm not so sure about the letting it flower bit myself, I never have, because I'm not sure about the seeding, but if you let it flower, you'll attract all kinds of beneficial insects into your garden as well. So that's sort of really good around things like sweet corn, your tomatoes, what's the other one, the good one you can use it for, like broccoli, your winter broccoli, because they're long season crops in the ground. You don't have to weed around them if you've got the trefoil growing around them. Later on, the frost will knock that down and mulch the ground, so you're getting so many benefits from them. And what I would suggest you do is get onto Google and have a search. Within half an hour you'll find a couple of sites where they're selling all these green manures. Look at each one, read the info about what each one does, and just have it in your toolkit. You don't have to remember them parrot fashion, but being aware that there's a green manure that will do a particular task. Later on, when you have a problem or have an issue or need to correct some soil or those sorts of things, you'll think, I know there's a green manure that will help with that. Then you can go and search for that. But if you know beforehand, it's like I said, it's like having a first aid kit up here. So you don't have to remember it all parrot fashion, but if you have an idea, you can go and search for it. And you can do the same with all your composts, all the different composts you can think you can make, all the different things you can compost. Find out the benefits of them, and then when you need to use them, you can go and search for them. Same with your fertilizers, liquid or powders. Learn about them. You don't have to remember it all parrot fashion, but just be aware of what these things will do for you. Now, I've got some ryegrass we'll go and have a look at now, because I want to talk a little bit about that as well. So I've got a little sack here of ryegrass. Now this is a nice, very broad-leafed grass. It grows incredibly well, and it can grow literally up here up to your waist, but if you cut it, it will grow again. So you're getting a harvest from it as it grows, and the roots grow down. You get a ton of roots underneath, and it is something that you eventually will need to either dig up and out or dig in. So do bear that in mind, and bear that in mind with all the green manures about how you can manage it and what the maintenance is of each individual green manure that you might like to grow. For me, this is brilliant stuff because I can harvest it, let it grow, harvest it and let it grow. And this stuff, as long as it doesn't flower, will continue to grow for about 2 years. So I've got a couple of, not so much of a problem areas, but areas that I'm not really growing anything because I haven't really set my mind on what I want to grow there. And now that I'm searching after, in large amounts, compost to further my plot in the future, power that on, this is a brilliant choice for those little areas as I find them. And I've got 2 that I'll be planting up in the spring. I'll show you them in a second, but probably by the end of the next year I would expect 5 or 6 to be planted up with this stuff ready to harvest. So we'll go and have a look at those little areas. So up the side of the plot here is gone to kind of rack and ruin. I have had plants growing in here over the years. I've got a couple of fruit trees in there at the minute. These are all going to be pulled out and put somewhere else. Well, what's happened is I've got my main crop beds here, and then a little path going up and down here, and this bit has just kind of been neglected, and you can see at the minute it's just full of weed. And it's the same behind me. When I go along, the bed finishes down here. There's a tiny path and then an area that's not really used. When it's not used, it's neglected. Things blow in there, weeds, whatever, rubbish. There is actually membrane down underneath there protecting the soil. So, you know, these are the areas that I'll be growing that ryegrass in. Now, I would urge you, as I do with everything, especially everything I do or show, to go and investigate the green manures. Go and find out what they're capable of. As I say, you don't have to remember them parrot fashion, but if you're aware of what they do, when you come across a problem or an issue, or you need to address something, or you want to grow something for benefit of yourself and for your plot and your soil and your compost, if you're aware of these things, then you can go ahead and just go and look at them and order them. So do have a look at them. I urge you to do that. I will be growing a lot more of the green manures next year. I'll be growing them as a companion plant. I'll be growing them as mulches, as weed suppressants, and anything that I think I need, so I can pack this plot out as much as possible with as much compost making ability, or as much things that's going to provide life for my soil. That's where my focus is, certainly for moving into next year. I want to do as much of that as I possibly can next year, because we all know everything's changing with peat being taken out of the system, and that's got to happen. So, but I'm going to do everything I can to further my own gardening, learn as much as I can. I don't know everything about green manures, far from it. I know enough to get me started. I've got 5 or 6 different green manure seeds now, the ones I want, and I could do with another couple for another couple of purposes. So I'll be looking at that over Christmas, further increasing my knowledge as well. So anyway, but that's it. That's enough waffling for today. Look after yourselves, everyone. Please stay safe, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Ta-ra now.